And I now invite the Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs and Deputy Speaker, Honorable Lenora Qereqeretabua, to make her contribution. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Inisambulu Binaka, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister, Honorable Sitiveni Rumbuka, the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Ines Seruratu, Ministers, Assistant Ministers, and fellow Members of Parliament, and also to members of the public who are watching this evening. I extend to you all a very good evening and Bulavinaka. Mr. Speaker, I begin by just thanking God Almighty, from whom all blessings flow, for sure is His faithfulness and His enduring mercy. I rise this evening, Honourable Speaker, to deliver my response to the 2023-24 national budget and provide my total support to it. Mr. Speaker, we all know it is not the Sangamoli budget that was delivered last year by the former government. It is certainly not the mother of all budgets delivered in November 2014 for the 2015 financial year, which in reality turned out to be anything but. Firstly, allow me to make a few comments in response to a few speeches from the opposition. On the topic of a rising cost of living due to the VAT increase and corporate taxes and duties, this budget's welfare policies are very well targeted to address the VAT effects on the people who need it the most. Need I remind the other side that all of us in this country, including those of us here in this house, and not just Chone and Premilla, to quote a member from the other side, have to pay for the mess left behind by their two-legged stool of a government. Mr. Speaker, the 2023-2024 is a budget that learns from the past. It's rooted in the present and has its eyes firmly on the future. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget for the new Fiji. The question, therefore, is what kind of Fiji are we trying to build? A Fiji where we can expect one another at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood. A Fiji where our children can grow up safe and sure, confident that the law works and that the government works for them. This is a budget that lays the firm foundation of rebuilding our future together. A budget that caters for the advancement of everyone and has come against a backdrop where more than $1 billion, or 25% of the money our government spends, is to be applied to paying interest and principal on our debts. A legacy left behind by a government that didn't know how to manage the economy except to borrow and spend. And now that it is out of government, it turns out, cannot even balance its own books as a political party and then got suspended. So please don't lecture this new government. Please don't lecture the new government. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Prime Minister and members of the coalition government for their confidence in my appointment as Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs, an appointment that I am assuming with humility and commitment. I am fully aware of the great responsibility that is placed on the shoulders of those who are called upon by our nation to represent them into the world. Be assured, sir, that I will give it my utmost loyalty and service. I take this moment to acknowledge the support of the staff of the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, where I previously served. They have my appreciation for their dedication, for being gracious and helpful in their performance of their duties, and their help to me in the performance of mine. Mr. Speaker, our beautiful country is undergoing a positive transformation, and a new Fiji is unfolding before our very eyes. A Fiji that has embraced real democracy and good governance. A Fiji that values freedom, inclusiveness, trust, and accountability, where the people is our focus. Mr. Speaker, as the government's mandated arm of diplomacy and the national vanguard reaching out to and managing new fields and relationships, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs took a giant leap forward when the People's Coalition government took up the baton of leadership. From being tucked away under different portfolios to the forefront where it rightly belongs for Fiji, the regional hub. Mr. Speaker, this milestone was amplified at the very first official engagement by the Honourable Prime Minister in Kiribati, where through time-tested Pacific Way, he stopped the Pacific family from coming apart. Our previous government treated our Pacifica neighbors with disdain. Our previous government treated our Pacifica neighbors with disdain, as people unworthy of its attention as it clamored for a bigger stage. The ridiculous fight over USP funding was a triumph of personal ego over common sense. How could we in Fiji speak confidently in the wider world if we did not have the goodwill of our neighbors? Who are we to talk about the global threats to our region when it was our own government that was the greatest threat to regional unity? But our Honorable Prime Minister has moved swiftly to rebuild our bridges. Mr. Speaker, it takes someone who understands and is prepared to take the time to be sensitive to Pacifica, Pacifica identity, Pacifica values, and Pacifica's sense of affinity to be able to cross the geopolitical, cultural, and legalistic lines and offer the hand of hope and trust that can only be offered by those who speak from the heart. The Honorable Prime Minister did that. He understands that everything we do as a region from this point onward is possible only upon that platform of unity and solidarity as a Pacifica family. Mr. Speaker, as countries begin to adjust to a post-pandemic world and the socio-economic development challenges that come with it, a worsening climate and biodiversity crisis and geopolitical competition, the leveraging of international cooperation and solidarity is even more critical in our diplomacy. The way we frame our issues and interests to shore up support and generate new opportunities is indispensable to building new alliances and agreements. Our efforts are not only to ensure that our interests are protected at the global stage, but that desired returns are realized through target engagements within our own very limited capacity. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will therefore embrace closer working relations with other ministries and agencies to streamline systems and processes, improve coordination, and ease of doing of business as we approach our development and security partners. We will be investing in coordinating the levers of government to ensure that domestic policy and foreign policy are working in tandem at all times. Our region, Mr. Speaker, is increasingly becoming more complex and contested. The diplomatic lens we wear to tease out and articulate our issues, to manage regional dynamics, navigate our way around associated challenges and opportunities is changing. Our focus remains to co-jointly safeguard and strengthen our sovereignty, security, and prosperity. Our foreign policy is guided by our commitment to multilateralism and regionalism. Our diplomacy will therefore be determined, calculating, and persistent. Recent official bilateral and multilateral meetings attended by the Honorable Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Ministers and government ministers and senior government officials deepen our relations and shore up cooperation. We have been forthright, honest, and willing to do our part. These are building blocks to new frontiers and a recalibrated diplomatic landscape. Mr. Speaker, in the contested space we find ourselves, we endeavor to maintain constructive relations with development partners while upholding good practices within the international rules-based order. This approach gives us a safeguard for desired returns from bilateral and multilateral engagements. Mr. Speaker, the $4 million allocated for the reopening of the 3 diplomatic missions in Port Moresby, Washington, and Kuala Lumpur signals the coalition government's commitment to restoring Fiji's presence to countries that have been and will continue to be major security and development partners. The focus will be on widening cooperation on a number of complementary fronts, and our selectiveness is key to optimizing our opportunities. Mr. Speaker, our physical presence in selected regions and countries is needed at a time when we reach out to our friends, for we do not have everything we need to deal with the issues that are transnational in nature and require cooperative responses. However, Mr. Speaker, the general state of disrepair of some of our mission properties after years of neglect reflects very poorly on us. As I've heard so many times since the budget address, maintenance seems to have been forgotten by some, is something that seems to have been forgotten by the previous government. and something for which we now must find funds to catch up. The $2.2 million allocated for capital refurbishment work is a start and therefore greatly welcomed. I commend our mission staff who carry on their work with diligence and loyalty. Mr. Speaker, with the $37.9 million allocated, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will raise its deliverance capacity to be more active and cohesive. An immediate focus is in enabling the ministry to operate smartly with tested internal controls and accountability measures, a focus that the coalition government is bringing to all its decisions and actions. There is an increased expectation on our missions, Mr. Speaker. This includes the facilitation of other ministry engagements abroad, which are not yet budgeted for. The ministry will coordinate closely with other sectors within and outside government to find creative ways of providing needed support with allocated resources. Mr. Speaker, there is renewed emphasis on serving our diaspora communities, the latter having contributed substantially to our economy in recent years. Our diaspora community is not a side issue. It is central to our image, our voice, and purpose abroad. Our diaspora community are initiators, they are suppliers, they are markets, they are investors and facilitators of humanitarian assistance. They are our people. We will work with them and together find new strategies to optimizing their potential in their new country of residence to help grow our own economy, our skills, and our human capacities at home. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will continue to reach out to other ministries in an effort to strengthen coordination of our efforts at the international front. In these, we are mindful of the 2030 Agenda, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, including other umbrella development agendas that will continue to underscore the Ministry's attention. Mr. Speaker, negotiations and advocacy on labor mobility, treaties and conventions, international security, trade, human rights, SIDS, and social economic agendas are priority areas in the Ministry's core business. We will endeavor to promote timely support to counterparts in the formulation and coordination of the government's position. Mr. Speaker, the work of the Fiscal Review Committee and the Ministry of Finance must be commended. They have put forth a budget that is smart and restorative. It is an example of what can be achieved when we are united, open, and consultative. Durable solutions are realized when the very people whose lives are affected are involved in that search for solutions. This budget is a demonstration of this inclusiveness. It is part of the coalition government's ongoing work towards resetting our moral compass in terms of governance, economic management, and real and practical help for our people. I therefore commend the great work of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance and his team, Mr. Speaker, and hereby give my full support to the budget. God bless Fiji. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, the Honourable Assistant Minister for Affairs.